Hello and welcome to the WTF Sunderland podcast as we attempt to look over a surprisingly hectic early few weeks in the transfer window at Sunderland. I've been in New York for the past few days, so I'm refreshed and most definitely ready to go, to use a phrase. And I'm joined by a decent little crew. First and foremost, I've got Pete back. I feel like I've been Peteless recently. You all right?
I am very well, thank you. Ooh, I was in New York because I'm so jet set.
Pathetic.
Ooh, just popped over the pond, didn't I? Just popped over. Anyway, I know I'm all right, mate. Very good. Nice to be back. I don't feel like I've been missing for as much as it's been made out that I have been, but clearly I must have missed a couple. But yeah, very excited by players that I'll be honest, I don't really know who most of them are, but they all sound very exciting.
This
I feel
sounds
like when like
sexy.
I feel like when but what it must have been like for my granddad when like the internet was just like explained to people. I'm like, it sounds lovely. It sounds great. And how much? It sounds proper. It feels right. Yeah, so yeah, I'm just going along with it and enjoying it.
Can't believe I just got done off Pete, by the way, for saying where I was on holiday. When normally it's like, Pete, where are you this week? Oh, I'm in a random place in China this week, covering this random politics.
Yeah, well, t today I'm in my bunker in Berlin in my garden, and it's completely undecorated and making me realize I need to do some DIY. Anyway, never mind.
Sophie, you're back. You've decided to stick with us for another season. Thanks for kind of seeing it out, I suppose.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to be back and chatting all things Sunderland and talking about our exciting newfound money that surprisingly to everyone that we're going to spend. So yeah, really happy, really excited. I can't wait for the season to begin.
Yeah, I'm getting a bit like that now. I would like a few more names and stuff in the door, which I'm sure we'll speak about. But yeah, really exciting. It felt like I'll be honest, I fancy just having a few weeks off, not doing a podcast, and then we got linked to that many players and started spending loads of money. I was like, oh, I better do it. The rest are doing them. I better do at least one just in case. Ian, you've came back, so you enjoyed the first episode, not the first ever, but your first. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. It's an exciting time, bizarrely, to have a pre-season looking forward to and getting name people through the door early. And I don't think I've ever experienced it before when it's not been someone like Josh Scowen. So yeah, it's definitely one to look forward to.
Josh Scowen, Jesus, I do enjoy sometimes looking like I think loads of people have done it and they've gone back to the players that were signed a few years ago. And whilst I'm not going to say I know that much about Habib Diarra and all these players we're linked to, but they're clearly slightly better than Josh Scowen and Joel Lynch, which was kind of the height of our transfer window business a few years ago. Sadly, Dave, you've joined us as well. I've invited you on. I've let you come back for your fourth season. Is it? No, it's your fifth season now. 5 seasons.
Unbelievable. Getting close to that testimonial, which we're all after. um, yeah, just been enjoying the summer far too much, hence the reason for not not being too fussed for not doing podcasts, really. But it is nice to be back and chatting all things Sunderland, and yeah, getting really excited about a Europa League place up for grabs because we just keep signing 17-year-old Africans. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, but it's all good fun. It's quite nice, isn't it, being a Premier League football club and spending a bit of money and not trying to do it on free transfers and loans and stuff like that. But I guess we'll see how they all bed in and see how many we beat Rayo Vallecano by in pre-season.
I found it quite funny that Brad in our group chat the other day, Brad RIP, how he posted that Invest in Africa sponsor. It looks like we're finally taking notice of it because it seems like everyone we're linked to is going to be at the AFCON, isn't it, in December? And one of the listeners' questions, by the way, I'm going to answer it. Said, how are we going to deal with our December fixtures when all the players go to AFCON that we're signing? Looking at the fixtures, we're just going to get beat anyway. So that's how we're going to deal with it. That's that one answer straight away. But Dave, look, I'll stick with you for the first one. It's been what feels like a really busy summer so far. And I think whilst the actual confirmed incomings at the time of speaking aren't that massive, there's three in the door. It's still quite good for this early in the window. Like Enzo has signed permanently, Habib Diarra Noah Sadiki, and it looks like that Ronaldo is more or less done from Atletico Madrid as well. What do you make of the club's activity in the transfer window? Because I think it's quite clear that we're willing to spend that cash, which I think, I don't know, has it come as a surprise to me? Yeah, it probably has actually. I knew that some of these signings will be bigger because it has to be because the division's bigger to have any chance. But I'm quite surprised how much we're splashing the cash and look like we want to splash the cash more. It's a good sign though, isn't it?
It certainly seems to be. It's just a continuation of what we've been dealing with, isn't it? It's bigger transfer fees, but for bigger potential, hopefully, in case worst comes to worst, we do get relegated. We've got them on long-term contracts. We have the potential to sell them for more if they do some good things this year, and if not, hopefully we're still playing Premier League football. And then their fees. I mean, Jesus, if we're paying 25 million. 25 million for players now, and they end up having a good season, then players are going to be worth 80 million next year, I'm sure. I mean, me inflation and me percentages isn't great. That's probably more Pete's domain. But, it seems promising. There's not many of us out there. Maybe it's a Josh Bunton who watches every single football game in the world ever. Bless you, Josh. Absolute legend. I do like his little snippets on Twitter. Maybe he could tell us something about them, but the rest of us, I don't care what you say. Nobody has a clue who they are, what they're doing. Of course, Habib Diarra did prove that England's number one is Jordan Pickford. See, goal through Dean Henderson's legs. He liked to rub that in, so he's worth the fee for that just alone. But yeah, just really excited and really excited to get back to watching a bit of football because I've been watching that Club World Cup and my God, it's minging. It's absolutely minging. The pace of it does not endear me to the World Cup next year. But that's for another podcast, another time.
It was massively advertised in America, just in case you didn't catch the bit about me being in New York. But they were like really trying to push it, and I was like, don't think anyone's that interested. But they're pretending they are. I'm sure Musiala might feel a little bit different about the importance of that tournament. But Pete, same question to you. Look, I'm not going to say I know anything about these players we're bringing in. No, I don't know everything about them. I don't watch enough. But the one thing I can say is that my editor at work is like a massive fan of Liga Un or League One, if you prefer. And I asked him about Diarra, and his direct quote was, "Yeah, really good player. You've probably overpaid a little bit because there's competition, but not by much. Really good player, excellent signing. I wouldn't be too concerned about that one not working out because he's really good." And he also was really positive about Bulka, but that obviously hasn't happened. But I think Sadiki, look, playing Europa League football last season, I did actually watch Union Saint-Gilloise last year. I can't say I noticed him, and that's not a bad thing. That's maybe a good thing, because if he was honking, I would have seen it, because they weren't very good on the night in the game against Rangers as it was, which I covered for work. But Enzo obviously has a lot of quality as well. And I think ultimately, you've got to trust that the club are trying to bring in the right names and the right figures. But ultimately, it's quite exciting, isn't it, Pete, that we're getting players that seemingly are highly rated across Europe.
That is the word, really exciting. And I mean, I think we're doing a good job at making sure that we do get this across, that we're not going to go, oh yeah, Diarra is going to be brilliant because of stats that you've read on something.
By the way, I don't mean to cut you off because I said before ground rules, don't speak over each other, but you said excitement was the word. I think I find it's actually bird.
Oh my God.
Okay, move on. Say what you were saying.
Oh dear God. Anyway, right. So Sunderland have signed exciting players for their ambitious project. No, it is exciting. Exciting is the word, is what I was trying to say. Because the thing is, some of these might be. I think a lot of us who are a wee bit older and remember like periods where Sunderland have splashed the cash in the past, and like where Lilian Laslands has come, and where other names. I don't know why I always go back to Lilian Laslands. Poor Lilian, but probably because he's called Lilian. But players that it just hasn't worked out. The thing is that the current recruiting team give us no reason right now to feel that these ones shouldn't work out. Yeah, there's some players that they've brought in that haven't kicked on as we would have hoped so, but they've always been able to move them on, or so far seemingly have been able to move them on for decent money. I don't think they're going to spend 30 million on Diarra or 25 million elsewhere and 20 million here without having done the due diligence on all of these. And I think the way that they go about setting up and the way they go about planning. This wasn't just once Tom Watson scored that goal at Wembley. There was plans ahead looking at Diarra and all of this. Must have been in place for months. If we go up, we're going for this lad because of this reason. And this is how we want to play in the Premier League. So I think it gives me confidence in the way they've been able to go out and get targets earlier on. As you've said, they've probably paid a bit over the odds. I think there is going to be a newly promoted team tax on Sunderland when it comes to getting players away from clubs, because whether that's in terms of the fee they have to pay or in terms of wages to a player in order to get them through the door, because some people might go, look at the stats. Yeah, it'd be Premier League for a year. What I mean, when it comes down to the brass tacks of the business of it, people will be looking at, can they break the curse of the teams that go up going straight back down? From what I've seen from them so far, I'm quietly confident.
I suppose it's better than paying the Saudi tax on it. Newly promoted tax sounds a lot better than the Saudi tax. I think one of the most intriguing signings of the whole summer, to be honest, Ian, has been that appointment of, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this correctly, Florent Gisolfi, former sporting director at Lens, Nice and Roma. And if people haven't listened to it, a little plug for the new Wise Men Say podcast, which is really good. Sasha Tavolieri discusses all of our incomings and the players that we're linked for. And he goes quite in depth on the appointment of him and says, I'll not spoil it too much, but essentially that he's been given the keys this summer by KLD, that the French, Belgian and the Italian are the key markets that he has got knowledge in. But what do you make of that development, Ian? Considering that most of the work in that area has been done by Stu Harvey and Speakman. By the way, I don't think Stu Harvey gets anywhere near enough credit. I think Speakman gets a lot. But how interesting is that development, that someone new's come in, being given the keys and has this expertise in like 3 markets that, potentially are a lot better than what we've had previously?
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting, because I think the last person who came in with any kind of fanfare behind him was Roberto De Fanti, and he signed the Eastern European version of the Spice Boys when he's with us. So obviously having all these guys come in, and I know obviously he started work on the 1st of July, but a lot of feet were there's discussions definitely going on in the background, I think. But if Fabrizio Romano's announcing the director of football, it's, there's obviously a reputation there. And I mean, I've never heard of him, but he seems to be making moves and going into markets that he's happy with. And I think there's been a lot of criticism around the club about not spending money in January's and over the summer and not getting the right players in. But realistically, we are where we wanted to be now. And I think we're seeing the benefits or reaping the benefits now of not wasting money on people like Tom Cannon.
Oh, God.
So
yeah, I mean, you look at what was it, 30 million for Tom Cannon, and then we're bringing in, I mean, again, I'm not massively well researched in terms of the players that we're bringing in at the moment, because they're not really leagues that I cover and all the leagues that I watch, and you can only watch so many games of your life before you get a little bit bored of football, because ultimately outside of Sunderland and England, I don't really care about any other club, to be completely honest. But I think it's interesting that you weren't on the podcast obviously, Ian, but I think when Enzo Lefebvre came in, me, Pete, Ross, we all discussed how Enzo felt like a step up, kind of the next step in Sunderland's model, which is now called Ambitious Project, allegedly, which is definitely a line that's been fed to Fabrizio Romano by maybe someone called Kirill, by the way. I'm pretty certain of that. But it does sound pretty good, so I like the marketing ploy if that's what it is. But we talked about how Enzo was like the next step on the sort of ladder of what his plan and his model was going to be. bringing in another sporting director to work alongside Speakman and alongside Harvey in recruiting players, that also feels like a step up, doesn't it? Because I know it hasn't massively worked out at Roma, but as it was discussed in the same podcast actually with Enzo, Roma was a bit batshit last year. They had three different managers and things didn't really work out, but ultimately he's been poached by Roma for a reason. Do you think this feels like the next step on Sunderland's recruitment? I'm going to say the word model, as opposed to like what we've had previously, like bringing in somebody else to even like open our markets even further.
Definitely. They've obviously a lot of the sort of the targets and stuff now have there'll have been work going on in the background. They'll have had these targets identified in the event that we went up. But I mean, when you're talking about Enzo when he came in, obviously that's a massive step up. If you look back to last year, I think the most money we spent was on the ultimate vibesman Leo Hjelde, and now we're going for some, captain of a Europa League team. Strasbourg within the Europa League. I don't know. I've probably embarrassed myself by
No, I
lacking
think they
French
are,
football
actually.
knowledge, but
I think they are.
yeah. And obviously two really exciting ones. I know one's not quite through the door yet. The Moroccan lad from Club Bruges, but played
Yeah.
Champions League football last season. So, it's with the greatest respect to Leo, bit of a step up, hopefully in quality, even though he's doing a job and we've won all the games that he's played in. So I'll, I don't really know what to say because it's every time I open my phone in the morning and look, there's somebody else, there's another here we go, or a strong link from from Sasha. So long may it continue.
It's fun, isn't it? And I think it's quite clear someone's connected to Fabrizio somewhere and is given that information somewhere. Like I say, it wouldn't shock me if it was Kirill directly because I think there's like a connection there between Marseille. But I think it's quite smart, this idea that we're this ambitious project, because ultimately, if you're seeing these really good young players linked, after all the good work we've done with the likes of Job, Chris Rigg, and you can see that Sunderland's a place where young players will get played, they will be given a shot. Any decent young player, when they see that Sunderland are spending decent money, actually going to make a fist of it. Any decent young European player that has a plan to play in the Premier League might look at Sunderland favourably when they're on social media and go, oh, hang on a minute, this ambitious project looks really good and I might actually play. And, I can actually have a shot at making it at a really big team that has ambitions to at least keep their head above water and build from there. So, look, if it has been directly fed to Fabrizio or whatever, that it's been marketed incredibly well and I've got no issues with it. But look, we've been linked with loads of players in the past sort of week, and the most concrete links appear to be Petrovic, Talby from Club Bruges, Miko Tadzi. I can't know if I'm pronouncing that correct, but obviously I think he's someone that we all really know because he's been at Lyon, and Reynaldo Mananda from Atletico Madrid, which looks all but done. So I'm going to go through each sort of one and see what you think. But I'll throw the first one to you, Sophie. I think Petrovic is really interesting. We had Bolter last week who's decided to choose the Saudi dough. I mean, 160 grand a week, I suppose. If you've got no morals, I can't really blame you. But interesting that we brought in, or we're targeting a goalkeeper for, well, I think it was 14 for Bolter. It's 21.5, I think, for Petrovic. Clearly, we're looking for that upgrade on Anthony Patterson, or we're looking for a replacement for Patterson, if you prefer. I'd love to prove that upgrade isn't needed, because I like Pato, I do. And I'd love any of these players to prove that we don't need to sign anyone, because A, it would save us money, and B, I like them all. Like I do with most of the lads, like I say. But what do you make of that almost ruthless nature of bringing in players that are seen as an upgrade, and the fact that Pato is quite clearly going to have to fight for his shirt next season?
Yeah, I think that, look, if we want to be successful and we want to stay up in the Premier League, we're going to have to be ruthless. But we have been ruthless at every step up that we've taken from League One to right now. You look at your players like your Lyndon Gooch. I loved Gooch, but unfortunately we needed to make the step up and we needed to improve. And this is the same again. I love Pato, and I think that Pato sometimes he does get the brunt of mistakes, and it's an easy kind of target. But the thing is with Patterson, for me, and it comes down to it's distribution. And your goalkeepers are meant to save you in games, and they're meant to win your games. And I think the next step up in the Premier League, it is going to be so difficult. We are going to be under a lot of pressure. We are going to probably sit deep. It's not going to be a pretty watch every week. And we'll need someone of that quality that Petrovic clearly has to kind of save us in games, clean sheets, and build upon that foundation. But I just think with Patterson, does Patterson walk into a Premier League side and become number one? In my opinion, he doesn't. I think that would be a really difficult thing to do. But it shows ambition that, we know where our weaknesses are. That's what I think. I think the whole thing is, yeah, it is ruthless, but it's needed. It is needed. We can't be carrying people along like passengers and hoping that something great's going to happen. And I guess the thing is with our young players, we're hoping that they're all going to hit the peak at the right time, and that will be next season, unfortunately, which doesn't leave us a lot of time or leeway.
No, I agree. I think, you talk about ruthlessness, and you're right about Gooch. You could also say like to Bailey Wright and stuff, who I've got massive respect for. But I think when we went into the championship, we quite quickly wanted to move on from players that were deemed as good high-level League One players to good championship players. And there's part of me that is quite sad about it all because, like I say, I love every single one of them in that team. Like, I seen people discussing the other day that they wouldn't be too disappointed if Dan Neil gone. I'd be devastated. I think it would be a ridiculous move to let Dan Neil go because I think he's one of the first names on the team sheet. And I want each and every one of the lads that have, the ones in and around the starting 11, I want them to be given a shot. But in reality, based on the past couple of years, you do that and you're chasing your arse for the rest of the season because you lose your first 6 games. And that's just the unfortunate, almost ruthlessness of the Premier League these days, that it's not going to take any prisoners. And as much as we've looked at West Ham at home as like a winnable game, I can guarantee you West Ham were kind of rubbing their hands at that as well, going, oh, fantastic. Newly promoted side, we can poop on their parade. And the last thing you sort of want, and look, we had a discussion about Pato collectively before. We had a fantastic game in the playoffs. It's a good playoff sort of whole campaign. But I think it was it, February when he made that mistake against Hull, and I think I openly, admittedly said, I don't know if he can go any further than what he's at. And I'm going to stick by that, to be honest. I hope he proves me wrong, because local lad, he's came up through League One. I'd love him to prove me wrong, but I would like to see a goalkeeper come in. I think I go back to the Roy Keane season when you would have been about 4 years old, Sophie, if you were even born. And I think I really like Darren Ward because he could catch a cross. That's all I've ever wanted from a goalkeeper. Can he catch a cross and can he make the saves he needs to make? That's all I'm ever happy with. When we brought in Craig Gordon, and look, it was a bit rocky at the start. I think some people weren't too sure. But Craig Gordon went on to be a fantastic goalkeeper for us and was, in my opinion, well worth the money we paid. Just a real shame that the injuries sort of killed him. But like, you look back at some of his performances in his first few seasons, a particular game against, it was Birmingham, where we won 3-1 under Steve Bruce, I think it was, a couple of years after he'd been here. And the highlights are on YouTube, and some of his saves were just outstanding. And I think when Roy Keane signed him, he said, look, a good goalkeeper will save you 9 points a season. And I'd like a goalkeeper that's going to save us 9 points a season, and whether that means we have to be ruthless or not. And look, if we're proven wrong, me and you, Soph, and Pato actually is class. No one's going to argue with that. And if the 11 players that, oh, obviously Job can't, the players that played the playoff final go on to be all fantastic, and all these players are just expensive substitutes, brilliant, no problem with that. But I get the feeling that's probably not going to happen. Pete, I'll chuck the next one at you. Chemistine Talby, Club Bruges.
Yeah.
Who I know a little bit about Club Bruges. The reason being because they played Celtic last year in the Champions League, so I had to do a little bit of research on them. Now, it's not surprising me that their team is being torn apart a little bit this season because they were decent in the Champions League last year when I think people thought they were going to get battered, or they were going to be one of the, not bad, one of the teams that would be not ending up anywhere near the top of that league. And I think they surprised a few people, and they were very good at Celtic Park against Celtic, in my opinion, are a good team. They did well in the Champions League and almost knocked out Bayern Munich. Talby was one of their standout players alongside the defender, De Kuiper, I think his name's pronounced correctly, and he's also on the way out. But another young player that's already played Champions League football, a lot of big things expected from him. His highlight reel looks fantastic. Certainly better than the one of Diarra, which is just him scoring penalties. Which, I suppose if you're a Sunderland fan, it's great news, by the way. But I'm going to throw that one at you. Talby, right winger, he looks like it. So there's no such thing as an upgrade on Patrick Roberts, but let's pretend there might be.
Yeah, okay. Is he the type of player that we need to be signing for going forward? Yes, it does look like that way. Is he an absolute Sunderland under the KLD Speakman model? Yeah, absolutely. No idea who he is. You're probably going to be able to have a bit more chat with him in French than anything else. It's look. I'll be lying. If I said I knew too much about him at all. Juventus and Napoli were after him as well, and he's chosen Sunderland over what you may call it. He's chosen Sunderland over them two. So there must be something that he's saying, because usually you would think they would be clubs that you would absolutely jump at the opportunity to sign for. But yeah, just keep saying they're exciting. They're absolutely exciting. I think having this kid, from what the little bits of video I've seen, there's some fantastic running with the ball. I mean, on the break, that type of football, it does seem that Reggie would like to play, and he's got the pace of the people that were buying seem to be able to add on to the pace that was already in the squad. Yeah, great. Bring it on. Let's see who else comes in. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching the first pre-season game and seeing how they line up and seeing how they set up. I mean, yeah. Until we actually see them all come together, I don't think we can really say too much about them. But over the moon with it. Seems like the type of player we're going to be bringing in. I guess there's going to be a few more before it's over.
Yeah, it looks like that Ronaldo Manada is pretty much done on a free transfer from.
Lovely pictures of him fishing.
Yeah,
On holidays, he looked very cool running around the stadium, and I mean, I'm presuming it's home where he's gone, but it looked very nice. It did look a little bit like if it was myself, if I'd gone back to Hetton and gone for a run at Kickabout on the Colliery Welfare, and then they're just taking some pictures of his fishing over the lakes there, over the ponds. But no, it was lovely, brilliant. Get him on in there. He seems like a bit of a tough tackling madman, so I'll have some of that.
I definitely think, look, Serkin was actually fit quite a bit last season. I think if you look at the amount of games he played whilst he did have that time out, if anyone listened to the last podcast when I pieced everything together, the first thing you said against Cardiff, Pete, was, I really hope Dennis Serkin has this career this season we can play games. And he had a period of time out, but he actually played, I think, over 40 games last year, which is really good for Dennis Serkin. Agi Alessi, unfortunately, his injury troubles continued, so your backup left back was that. Niall Huggins is your other left back, and look, he's had his problems with injuries as well. And I think Serkin's got 1 year left in his contract, which is something we're going to come up to, but ultimately we've signed someone who's played in a Diego Simeone defence, which is something I always would trust 100%, because those defences are I don't know why I said that so posh, but his defences are mean as fuck, and I like that. And I think the fact that the Atletico Madrid fans didn't seem happy that he was away is definitely a positive. And look, it doesn't mean he's going to work out here 100%, but I like the fact that he's got experience, European experience. He'll want to come and play in the Premier League and improve himself. He's already played in red and white, which is always a big plus. But I think for me that's a really good signing. But Dave, the most exciting of all of them, if I'm honest with you, is, and again I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, is Georgios Mikotadze, I believe it's pronounced correctly. Played for Lyon for a number of years up front. He scored 17, I think it was, last season. He sort of seems to rotate with Lacazette, who's obviously left now as well. Georgian international, clearly a player where I can't pronounce his name, but I have heard of him because Lyon are a club where, you do see them now and again. We've got Wilson. We've got Maenda. But I think it's fair to say we need a striker that we think can at least guarantee us at least 10 to 15 goals. A Kenwyne Jones-esque signing. By no means guaranteed that one, but that's one of the stronger links. Thoughts on that one, Dave?
Yeah, again, not really a league that I've ever took much notice of, so I don't really know too much about him. But the way the world seems to react to these links, and then the clubs that seem to be interested in them, again, just really, really exciting. You know, we've said we need more experience and stuff, which I think we still all believe. To have been at that level, then you must be doing something right. That's for sure. And our era growing up, if he's anything like Georgie King Clancy, then we're just going to love him, aren't we?
He got 7 assists in the Europa League last year. Sorry, not 7 assists. He got 7 goal contributions in the Europa League last year, which I think was in only about 11 games or something. Because Leon went fairly far, but then of course got knocked out by Man United in that game. But 7 goal contributions in 11 games is pretty decent going in a really good European competition, considering what we've got. But I think, whether it's him or somebody else, we discussed this last year, Dave, when we talked about Mayenda, when I said I thought he looked quite bright in the game against Cardiff. And I said, but I'd like someone to come in who can score 10 to 15 goals to take the pressure off Mayenda having to score goals next season, so he can come off the bench and just play his own game and not feel like he has to score. I've got full confidence in Elijah Mayenda because I absolutely love the bloke. And I think he's got all the tools you could want from a Premier League striker. He's fast, he's confident, he's clinical. He's obviously got room to go. But if Mayenda went and scored 10 goals this season, it wouldn't shock me. But again, I'll repeat what I said last year, but in a different division this time. It would be nice to have competition for him at the very least. If you can bring in someone that can score you 15 or 10 to 15 goals, which is the ideal sort of thing, and allow Mayenda to make an impact off the bench or, occasionally rotating, that's kind of the dream, isn't it? Because if we can get two strikers scoring, look, if we got 2 strikers and you get 20 to 25 goals between them, and then whatever Wilson chips in as well, that's the dream, really, isn't it? But you need to have that striker to cause that competition.
Absolutely, yeah. Back in the day, weirdly, I was talking to a Man United fan earlier, and how strongly they're being linked with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And again, our era growing up, United were the most successful club going. And the thing that Sir Alex Ferguson always used to do was made sure that he had options up there. Obviously, the 99 treble team had 4 centre forwards. The 2 off the bench were the ones that won the game for them. It would be lovely, because we only play 1 centre forward nowadays. 3 is probably more than enough. But to have someone who would come in and almost like warrant a start more than anyone else. But I totally agree with you in terms of, I think Isidore and Mayenda will both thrive in this league for the style of football that we play. So if we've got someone there with a little bit more nous who they can feed off, then I'm all for it. To be honest, I've mentioned Calvert-Lewin a few times because I'd more than happily take him as like a rotation type option in terms of he's been there, he's done it, his goal scoring record's pathetic. But it's someone who has that experience, has been at a higher level, and that, I think that's what we're desperate for. If you give me a choice between Mick Owadze and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, yeah, I'm absolutely taking Georgie King-Gladzy Part 2. No doubt about it whatsoever. But again, it's just exciting links, isn't it? I suppose the other link that's out there, and we got nothing concrete on that. And you find it so hard to believe after the Club World Cup that he's having. But Garcia from Real Madrid, I mean, that I reckon I watched the game last night against Dortmund. Absolutely gutted that Job wasn't playing, by the way. Absolutely gutted. But also, by the way, our when full-time analysts and commentators are coming out and going, you know what, this Dortmund team's really missing? Joe Bellingham. Or the one that we said would actually be a very, very good player eventually. Yeah, just watch out for him. I think he might have a bit about him. But
do you think there might be something with that, though? Like, because it was ramped up a bit today, because we were linked to him last week or the week before, 10 days or so ago. And then suddenly you've got like nothing that's been mentioned. He starts scoring goals for Real Madrid, and all of a sudden we've made a concrete bid, and it's, you know exactly what's been paid, what the sign-on fee would be, what extra you would pay. Do you ever get the feeling that? Because again, go back and listen to the Wiseman Says most recent podcast with Sasha. Says he thinks KLD's a very smart lad, and I think when it comes to recruitment and the way he's built us, yeah, like it's kind of hard to disagree on that because you've got to have something about you to take us from where we went from to where we're at. And he's been kind of leading the charge. And look, I've been the first to criticize him a lot of times, Black Cat Bar, but like I still can't deny that he's done an absolutely phenomenal job to get us where we're at. I mean, we're dreaming compared to where we were when he came in, if we're completely honest. It wouldn't shock me, Dave, if he's putting those kind of rumours out and saying, "Oh, I've made this bid to maybe push another deal further forward." Like, look, we had French Dave, let's call him Georgie Kincladze because I know how to pronounce that. But it wouldn't be surprising if some of these links and rumours are being pushed further forward, not because we're not interested in them, to kind of maybe force the hand of other people, because that's kind of the modern world in the market these days, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's almost as if
It's murky, but it can be effective.
it's yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if you're finding grey areas and you're not breaking any rules, then to get yourself one up over Leeds, then potentially sometimes it might be worth doing. If there's one thing,
Leeds a step in the side again.
if there's one thing that KLD should have in this world, which is madness called football, it should be contact, because he's been there since the day that he was born. And yeah, there could well be some truth in that. Just trying to get that one out. Let's be honest. I mean, Garcia, he might as well come play for us. Costa del Seaburn, Costa del Sol, very, very similar.
Same shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very similar. I've heard of Sangria down in the Roca Tavern's absolutely wonderful. Do you know what I mean? But in terms of, yeah, just the whole thing's very exciting. And he's not going to get a game before Mbappe, is he? Who knows? But it's very exciting. We'll get to know one way or another. Somebody's going to, leak something eventually. Probably won't. We'll probably just get told once it's actually done. Here we go. But yeah, it seems a bit of a surreal world. All I know is it is ruthless, isn't it, Pat? Or like you were talking to Sophie about earlier, it is ruthless. But all we're interested in as a football club, while we do have these relationships with the players and stuff like that, we want someone to stay in the Premier League, and we need the best chance of doing that. It certainly looks like they're giving it a go, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, I again, I'll repeat. I love those 11 players that played at the playoffs. I love the ones that came off the bench. I love pretty much the entire squad that ended last season. But the way football's going, they're going to need help at the very least. Doesn't mean I don't have confidence every one of them stepping up. I actually really do. Like Trey, Riggy, the whole lot of them, I've got full trust that they'll step up and be absolutely fine. But if we can chuck in another £200 million worth of talent to help them do that, then, if the money's there, why not? As long as it doesn't break too much team spirit, which is why I'm kind of not too disappointed didn't get Bulga. Look, it's big money, and I know some people might say, like, oh, like, well, would you turn that down? Well, if I was getting offered like 50, 60 grand a week to play in the Premier League over Saudi Arabia at 25 years old, yeah, probably would do. But, football's a funny and murky world. I certainly don't want players who want to come here just for the money. But I think the way that the recruitment teams worked over the past few years, it's been about signing the right sort of humans as well. There's been very few bad eggs that have came in that we've seen over the past couple of years, and I'm not saying there's been none, but they quite clearly look at the human side of it as well, which I think is really important. But we've got a few listeners' questions, but before we do, look, Adil Sheesh left today, Ian, and it looks like there's got to be other names on that list because the squad is too big. There's clearly a little bit of concern over Dennis Serkin and Dan Neil, who have a year left on their contract, but there's got to be a few players moved on as well from the fringes. Who else do you see moving on, and who would you be okay with being moving on? Obviously, Pervader's got to stay, but
you've got everyone needs an Ian in their life.
Yes.
So I would have to keep Pervader. I think it's a cracking move for Sheesh, and hopefully it works out as well as it has for Nectar up there. You'd think that people like Joe Anderson had been moved on. He did all right when he came in towards the end of the season. I know we'd given up at that point anyway, so it didn't really matter what he did. But he wasn't massively out of place. He didn't stand out like a sore thumb as someone who would barely played football and wasn't very good at it. So I think Alan Brown, we might not see much of that. I think Alan Brown might be one that goes. I forgot about him, to be fair, because obviously he was unfortunate. Hadn't been injured for 12 years with Preston and then came to us
Broke his leg.
and broke his leg, blocking a clearance. And so I'm on the video that the club put out on YouTube. And I think he might be one that maybe goes, because obviously if he was good enough for the Premier League, a team would have taken a punt on him long before now.
Adji's a question mark for me as well with his
He
fitness.
is a question mark, not ability. It's just
No, not at all.
injury, because I really like him. I think he gives us something different to Sirkin as well. But I mean, as far as Sirkin and Neil's contracts go, obviously there's rumours going around. There's a bid for Neil. I think we've talked about it before. It's agent talk to try and get more money,
Probably.
with the contract. But I don't think Dan Neil is a lad who's spoken the way he has about playing for your hometown club, but leading them out of Wembley and winning it. I don't think he's going to be one that's going to be desperate to be off. He'll want to lead the team.
And he did
and I think
the YouTube yesterday as well, which I think is really interesting. That he did the YouTube assessing the preseason. Like, if there's a player that's on the verge of not signing a contract and leaving, it's a strange move to put him up in front of the camera, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And Dennis Sirkin, I think it was after the Wickham game, he said, "This is my club now." I don't think it's a lot to change. It's only 3 years, 2-3 years down the line. 3 years down the line, I don't think that's changed a lot. You could say how much it meant to him on the pitch, because I know he's obviously lost his dad a couple of years ago before even the Wickham game, and he looked emotional. Whether it was that or the fact that he'd done what he said he was going to do when he came here and get them back to where they belong. Bit of a cliche, but everyone said it. There's a select few. There's those 11 and the few that came off the bench that can actually say they did it. So, I mean, outside of Joe Anderson, Alan Brown,
you've got Rooston and that coming back, I suppose, as well.
Sealed, maybe could be moved on, probably on loan, because there's a player in there, but he just
Ekwa's an interesting one, because Ekwa seems to be getting like £6-7 million moves. And I'm like, what we fed them?
Yeah, and is it a different? Are they watching a different one?
Is it a different Ekwa?
But they might have just been sent by his agent a clip of the last 5 games of the Tony Mowbray playoff season and just said, "This is what you can get for £7 million
with bonus."
Southampton at home. No, ignore that. Just this bit.
Bonus Southampton at home highlights as well. Look, he can also score from range.
Just edit out the deflection, and it's fine. Yeah.
But it's going to be a swell squad, isn't it, if we don't trim it as well. As much as the incomes are super exciting, I mean, there was players there that I kind of forgot even. Like I forgot Joe Anderson was a thing. Rusin, Ekwa. I don't want to say there's question marks on Adjilise, because that's not what I mean. Again, ability, I agree with you. I've got no issue with it. I think he's a really good player. I think he gives us something different, but he's been perma-injured for like three seasons, and that at the very least, he needs to go somewhere he's going to play regular football, because I think he's not going to start every game in the Premier League. So where does he get the regular football? Because if he doesn't get regular football, what's he going to get? Injuries. And that'll be 4 years. So I think for me, Adji's a loan move. It kills me that I agree with you a little bit on Alan Brown, because I think he's just funny. And that screamer he scored against Leeds will live with me for the rest of my life. And he seems like, and Pommy, And it seems like he's got a bond sort of with the squad, and that's kind of that's going to be the balance, isn't it? I think, Ian, really, like the balance of making sure you don't upset a really close net of players, but also add to it with quality not without upsetting people. Because look, the big boys, I don't think they're going to be daft, but I do feel like that balance is hard, isn't it? Because you've got a bunch of lads who've worked their absolute bollocks off to get us there. Some of them from League One, and now you're saying, right, here's these 25 to 30 million pound players. Keep the team spirit. That's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think Zach Johnson, thinking, because there was a picture of them doing the belief test, and there was Joe Anderson, Harrison Jones, who'll probably go out on loan, especially with the people coming in the positions that they play. He's probably a loan move for him. And Zach Johnson, there's clearly a player in there, because he wouldn't captain England at age groups if he was completely rubbish or wasn't going to make a step up. But it might be there's another loan for him, and if that, but where does he come in if we get in some central defenders who are 25-30 million pound players? Where does that leave him? It might just be a case where it's time for him to move on as well. It is go back to the word ruthless again. It's going to have to be, because there's a lot of players who've done a job. I know they've not played much, but they've held down a position and kicked the ball as far as they can when they need it to. If we were backs against the walls, and sometimes that's what you get and that's what you need. But there's going to be players who won't play as much next season, and if they're in that certain stage of the career, like Zach Johnson, where he wants to be playing to get better, or Alan Brown, who's been a regular for 10 years and not been so much of a regular. When he came back from injury, Enzo was going to be in there all the time over him anyway, and it was working well with Job, Neal and Rig. He won't want to just sit on the bench if even he gets that option.
There's a lot. By the way, as we've been discussing, we've been linked to somebody else. This is by Lequip. Armand Loriente from Sassuolo. We've entered negotiations to sign them. So even as we're speaking, they're coming out like pups. Fantastic. Bloody brilliant. So if we sign anyone whilst we're on this podcast while I'm editing it, I'm really, really sorry. They are a little bit like Roy Keane's first deadline day. They're coming out like pups. Only these ones are not all Irish internationals or used to play for Celtic. Look, we've got a few listeners' questions. Pete, I'll give you the first one because Dave's nicked off. I don't know where he's gone, but hopefully everything's all right.
He solves crimes on the side.
Ah, crime fighter.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. That'll be the beard.
A lot of lycra.
Really?
A lot.
For Dave?
Doesn't leave anything to the imagination.
Dave never has. Why should his clothing be any different? Um, these new signings are exciting. Are we still in desperate need of Premier League experience and know-how? I'm going to say really quickly, yes, but Peter gave us a longer answer.
Yes. And I think there is a Jordan Henderson-shaped hole in the incoming so far. And it's just the move that seems to make so much sense to everybody, to every side. And I think that would be the Premier League experience that is certainly lacking from the players that have been brought in, the players that have been linked to the club. That fixes it for me, is bringing in Jordan Henderson. Yes, I would like to see potentially another one, but if you get a Premier League winning captain, a Champions League winning captain, an England captain in there, in that position that he would be wanting to play, and as we understand, it's not just a playing role. He's also quite interested in developing as like a coaching role from some of the things that we've heard as well. Great. I think that's what's needed. So yes is the answer. There is Premier League experience lacking, but I think that's an easy fix, really. Should be. to anybody on the outside, it seems like the simple move.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I haven't gone through every single squad that got promoted and has either succeeded or failed. And I don't want to have comparison to Nottingham Forest because, look, you could do exactly the same as Nottingham Forest and have completely different results. Like, you could do exactly the same thing as Ipswich and have completely different results. Every club is unique. But if we're going to use, for example, Nottingham Forest as an example of a club that did well and what kind of Premier League experience did they add, just looking through their transfers from that summer, a lot of the players that didn't necessarily have a huge impact, but at the same time worked within the squad and probably had a bit of know-how. The one that's worked at best is probably Nico Williams, weirdly enough. They signed him from Liverpool that summer. They've signed Jesse Lingard, which is probably the more famous one. They brought in Cheku Coyote from, I think he was at West Ham. Morgan Gibbs-White, Willy Bolly. Serge Aurier came in from Spurs. Bloody hell, they signed a lot. John Joe Shelby signed from Hogwarts. All those players coming in had Premier League experience, and I think I go back to the Simon Moore signing last season. Played 3 games, but there's no doubt that his experience of the Championship level and the playoffs and all that kind of stuff would have helped that dressing room. So, yeah, look, I'm going to say it, I'm blue in the face until that happens. Jordan Henderson needs to come back home this summer. I think any time later is too late. I think it's the wrong time any other time. I think right now, you just pay the wages that he wants. And hopefully it won't be very much because it shouldn't be. He's never been known to be greedy in the past and want a big wedge from anywhere else. But I think, look, you kind of get a better example of a seasoned Premier League footballer who can lead a dressing room that's available for free than Jordan Henderson. Like, it's just a total no-brainer. And I would like more than that. personally. I would like more than just Henderson, but I think that would be like an absolutely fucking phenomenal start. But Sophie, I'll come to you the next one. I love questions like this. Who would be your dream but realistic signing?
Oh, that's a hard one, actually.
Mm.
Um,
It depends what
is it
reality you live in,
realistic
doesn't it?
though? Yeah, realistic though. I have seen us linked to a few centre halves because I need to see a centre half come through the door.
Hmm.
The longer we wait for a centre half, the more worried I'm getting
Mm.
that they're not going to sign one. I have seen us linked with a Joe Gomez, which I would absolutely love.
Yeah.
But is that realistic though? I don't think it is.
I mean, how many
Is it?
games did he play last year, Joe? Because he was in the England squad for the Euros, obviously, but he did.
Yeah.
I feel like he didn't really get much of a look in at Liverpool. But then you've also got the caveat of, well, Liverpool won the league. He played 9 games last year. No, you know what? I'm going to say that is realistic. But what worries me about like a Joe Gomez link, and this is no disrespect to Gerald Quansah, but Gerald Quansah cost £30 million.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, why? And how much would we have to pay for Joe Gomez? Is
That's
that
my
do you know what I mean? That's
yeah.
how much would Liverpool want for him? Because I mean they're going to win the league anyway, in my opinion. I think
Yeah.
it's done. But would it be possible to get him on a loan?
That's an interesting thought process, right? We've looked at money and all the big £30 million that we're allegedly going to spend or have spent on Diarra, but the loan market's quite important as well, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. And obviously next year is the World Cup. And that would give I personally think that would give him a great platform to put himself in the that I think that's a big thing and a good thing that we've gone up this year is because you can say to players, come to Sunderland, you're gonna play. You know, even if we do get relegated, you've put yourself in and think, oh, he was a worrier for Sunderland last season, or do you know what I mean? So I think that it gives us a better platform for players to show what they can do because, like we've said before, with young players, you're going to play, you're going to be given the opportunity. So I think that a Joe Gomez would fit the bill, and I think he's a very good defender. Particularly, maybe he's not at the stage where Liverpool is in terms of obviously fighting for titles, but he's still a very good footballer, a Premier League footballer. So
I think you look at like Leicester last year and they brought in Connor Cody, or I think they had Connor Cody actually the season beforehand, and he goes down the line of like former England international that has loads of Premier League experience, but like he's the wrong side of 30. Joe Gomez is not long turned 28, so
exactly.
he's actually peak age. He's at an age where like he can, if he has a good season and Sunderland have a decent season or decent enough, he can like showcase himself and like look, worst case scenario, get to the end of the season for him, he's going to have more options if he has a good season at Sunderland at the end of the day. Look at how many clubs wanted Liam Delap because he had a good season, and Ipswich were not very good, to be fair. I'm just pleased you didn't say Jack Clark. I was waiting for the Jack Clark to come in there, but
Oh, no thanks.
we're past the point of Jack Clark now, aren't
We've gone above that
We're
now.
so above the Jack Clarks
Yeah,
of this
£30
world.
million we're spending on players. No thanks.
I'm pleased I didn't take my own question on that because you know what? My answer would have been Ahmad Diallo because I still live in the reality that one day he will.
The sweet prince will return.
One day, but I think I live in a different reality. This question I quite like, Ian. I think it's a decent question. Of the Premier League, sorry, of the playoff final lineup in the starting 11, I'm assuming, outside of Job, obviously, who's left, how many and who do you think will start against West Ham?
Um,
Trey.
yeah, Trey, Ballard would
Hmm.
definitely. Dennis Serkin, I would
Hmm.
think, would probably be in there. I think there's Dan Neil would probably start unless there's something drastic happens in midfield. I can't see him throwing 3 new. I know Enzo's not a new signing, but I can't see him playing the 3 of them. I don't. I think it'll be probably Sadiki. If I've butchered his name, I apologise. Noah, I'll call him Noah because I know that's how you say that. I don't think. I think he might be one that doesn't play straight away. It at this point, it depends who comes in because we've been linked with 4 players just since we started recording this. So I don't think I don't think we'll Mayenda or Isidore will get in there. I mean,
I think
Isidore
we're
didn't
going to
start,
start
but he
going.
played. Mundell would probably be around there based on who we've got at the minute.
But then we'll
If
just be
this
linked to
Moroccan lad comes through the door,
another left winger as we've been recording as well. It's
another
like,
one. Yeah, it's yeah,
there's only Trey for me
Patterson,
that's a definite starter.
yeah, and Ballard, definite.
Yeah. I think, I can't remember who said this, but as much as he scored an own goal and gave away a pen against that lot, he was
He was
actually
the best player.
he was our best player. I
Yeah,
think it was you that said that, wasn't it? He was our best player that
yeah,
day.
he's our best player. Even like lads I work with up who support them up the road, they said he's been your best player, and it was never a penalty.
Yeah.
It's like it was just good defending, and people aren't used to it. People are saying there's contact and just screaming for a penalty straight away. But we're dwelling on something that happened 18 months ago, and we all want to forget. So,
Didn't happen.
on the subject of Joe Gomez, as an experienced player, he hasn't even played 200 games in his career, and he's 28 years old.
Has he not?
No,
You take him though. You take him.
he's only played double figures in like double figure games 4 times in his Premier League career with Liverpool.
So what you're trying to say is he's available.
And what I'm trying to say is there's a chance. Yeah, 170 games he's played.
Is that because he's mainly been at Liverpool since he signed from what,
It's because
Charlton?
he's been injured. Yeah, played 21 times for Charlton, and the rest have been for Liverpool.
So I would like to see a strengthened centre half, just in case Luke 9 for once in his life doesn't prove us wrong
Yeah, true.
and ends up being really decent. So I'm with Sophie on that. Pete, I'll give you this is quite a good one because I like having a realistic question because whilst everyone's been getting dead excited, I've kind of gone, hang on a minute, we paid 30 million for Ndong and he was shit. So don't count your chickens just yet. Just paying big money doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. And then there's also the caveat that this recruitment team is to be trusted, seemingly, based on their track record in recent years. But I like this question anyway. Do you think, Pete, that we're overpaying and paying Premier League fees for players and links? I.e., the example being used was Romain Mundle only cost 1.8 million. Chemsedine Talbi is going to cost the best part of 23 million euro. And is there much of a difference between the two of them?
I would love to think that I really knew the difference between a Romain Mundle and a Talby, like exactly where the metrics went for the values of them, because it's fascinating how the valuation of footballers goes. I mean, I've got no understanding of it. Thankfully, the recruitment team at Sunderland seem to have a better grasp on it than most. Um, do I think they're overpaying? I spoke about the promoted team tax. I think it's a huge thing. I mean, the news that Sunderland would be getting essentially $250 million in fees in cash. I mean, when you included transfer the TV money and everything like that. I mean, that was on the news all over the world. There is nobody in world football that doesn't know Sunderland are a bit flush at the minute. And they're all going to be having that in mind when it comes to the negotiations. All we have to hope is that the recruitment team from our side have factored that in when they've come to do the due diligence on this. And it's why there does seem to be multiple targets. The thing that I'm getting a lot of positives from is the fact that we don't see the players Sunderland are signing don't seem to be linked at all until we get a Fabrizio text or the other fella Sasha sending something out. So I like that. I like the idea of the business being done behind closed doors. But yeah, I mean, probably they are paying a little bit over the odds. But I think any Premier League team buying any player is always going to pay an extra bit of fee because everybody knows the Premier League's the only league in world football that really has the heavy duty money these days.
Yeah, I think I do trust the recruitment team to get it right. I think if they feel like these players are worth X, Y, and Z and the money's there, you're only going to, everything's a risk. You're always a risk.
Oh, I agree. I also think when I say I trust them, I trust that they will have a mark in their head that it said, look, if it goes to this point, we're willing to pay, but not a penny more. And that they will walk away coldly. And that's what I quite like about them. We talked a little bit about the ruthlessness earlier on, but I do think that they would walk away from any player coldly, that they wouldn't be emotionally attached in any way to it, to the deal, that they have target A, B, C, D, and E all in mind already, and that's one of the things I'm quite pleased with them about.
Essentially, like I was saying before, I think Stu Harvey probably deserves more credit than he actually gets because, to my knowledge, it's Stu Harvey that sort of identifies these players, then gives them to Speakman to say, like, this is how much we're willing to spend on this player, this is what the budget is. And it seems to be a team that works, especially like the last year, really, really well. And it has worked really, really well if you take it outside of the sort of Michael Beale season at points. It has worked in certain ways, but you know, it is what it is. The proof's going to be in the pudding at the end of the day. This is a different league, a different set of signings we're making alongside a new person who's clearly had some sort of work. I think, if what rumours are believed to be true in terms of this lad's got the experience of like the Belgian, the Italian leagues, and the French leagues. Clearly, I imagine he's had a little bit of input on some of these signings we've made already and the ones we've been linked to. But we'll go for a couple of fun ones before we finish. I'll go for. Ooh, let's have a look. How many times have you watched the Ballard replay? A lot, actually. I wouldn't. I'd say I've stopped watching it daily, but if it comes up on the timeline, like it's going to happen. And I said it at the time, and I haven't changed my mind on this. That's the greatest moment the Stadium has ever had thus far. Period. Nothing's been better than it. And I wish I could relive it just for a minute because it was fantastic, and it's my favourite Sunderland goal of all time. Sorry, David Vaughan against the Mags, you've been replaced. But yeah, I've watched it an awful lot. I haven't really had the chance to not watch it. I've stopped watching it over the past few days, past week maybe. Same with all the Wembley content really. But I suppose if it comes on my timeline, I do watch the entire thing all over again. I'll give you this one, Sophie. Would you rather have fingers for toes or toes for fingers?
I think toes for fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if I was walking along the beach and I had like fingers for toes, everyone would be a bit. What the hell's just walked out of the water?
All the kids screaming and running away like, ah!
Yeah, that.
I think it's also more practical. I think,
Yeah, you can grab stuff still.
yeah, you could still grab stuff with your toes. It would just be a bit like that you couldn't eat. You couldn't go to the fish and chip shop without a fork.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it wouldn't be that impractical or frustrating.
What about eating an ice cream? If you had a cone, if your grip was too tight, your cone would give
Smash.
way. Yeah,
Mm.
you'd have to have a tub.
It'd be a tub. It'd be a tub, and you'd have to like scoop it with your toes.
Yeah.
So you'd maybe have. Oh, I've got too far. I've got
Yeah,
way too deep into
we've
this.
gone on topic.
Let's look at some more silly ones because I like the silly ones. Okay, Ian, do you remember Dammy and Doy
Sadly.
winger when he came to us? Played him on
Was
the
he?
right. Sam Allardyce played him on the right so he could accommodate the four front. Played on the right wing at Liverpool away. Wasn't very good. Played in the right wing against Man United when 1-2-1 as well, and Kazri scored that free kick that curled all the way in. I don't know why Dammy and Doy was asked. I just thought I'd ask that one. And when I'm looking at silly
I do.
questions, it stood out.
Did he score? Was it Crystal Palace he scored against?
Yeah.
With a heavily deflected goal?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the kind of, yeah. It's,
Very Sam
remember him.
Allardyce signing that.
very,
It felt
Very,
very
like,
like Sam
echoes
Allardyce.
of Bolton.
Yeah, like might be good, might be shit. I'll give it a shot. Pete, I'll give you the last question. When will the Jack Rodoni transfer saga end, and when will we just land our main transfer target, as in Jack Rodoni?
I mean, as soon as not to cross the podcast streams, but I thought Sensible Sunderland had already cleared this up with the, isn't it like 3.5 million we're going to sign him and
Add-ons potentially.
Some add-ons, yeah, a couple of quid here and there, be about right. Um, you know, Jack Rodoni's an all right footballer. He's a pretty good centre midfielder who, I probably would I take him in Sunderland's current team? Maybe, but
Well, he's better than all of them. So
I mean, this is what I've heard. This is what I've heard. I think there's some very bitter and twisted fans that left in the Championship after Sunderland's escape from there last season, and hopefully we don't have to come across them for a long time.
yeah, fingers crossed. Someone also asked about the what do I feel about the 24-point gap, the huge
Oh,
gap to
that
Leeds and
this
Burnley.
is insane, isn't it?
It's interesting. I've got to be careful what I say because like I wrote it's one of my colleagues, but I mean, my thought process on that is, as I think I wrote it on my personal account. We basically pissed up the last 5 games at the war by playing fucking again. No offense, Joe Anderson at left back, which blatantly was like the fact that was proving we weren't serious. I think the best way to look at the gap between Leeds and Sunderland and Burnley and Sunderland, if you believe there's a gap, is probably to look at the games between the teams. Whereas if Wilson scores a penalty, we beat Burnley twice and they don't score against us once. And I think in both the Leeds games, if I'm honest, I think Leeds probably edged the home game and then Meslier just had a total brain fart. I think the away game, I think if I'm completely and brutally honest, I think Leeds probably just deserved it based on their performance on
Yeah,
that night.
I'd agree with that. I think Leeds were a better team than Sunderland last year, but both Leeds and Burnley, of course, did have the benefit of those the cash that was there, the players they were able to bring in, not in terms of just first team players, but it was always in terms of the squad players that they had available to them that they could bring off the bench.
I don't think you can look at the. I don't think you can look at the points.
I don't
The
think you can.
games you can. We basically sacked off those last 5 games. So like, I mean, I, is there a gap between Sunderland's team last season and Leeds' team? Yeah, definitely. And I think that came in squad depth. And I spoke about it on the night that we got beat off Leeds. I said, look, they were bringing on like Ramazani and stuff like that. I don't think it was a 24-point gap. And even if it was, doesn't fucking matter next season. Doesn't matter.
It makes absolutely zero concerns for the Premier League campaign. I'm looking forward to getting it started now.
Yeah.
All I hope is that it doesn't just kick off. And do you know when you would play like somebody really, really good at FIFA, and your first time you sat down to play them, and you think you're all right, and somebody's really,
Be
really,
good.
and they just like, and you know it's gone straight away. You know you've absolutely lost it within the first couple of. I just hope it's not going to be that.
Like the time when we played Charlton at home and Darren Bent was actually really good and the Charlton
Yeah.
beat us 3-1 and you kind of went, oh, it's not going to be fun this. And it wasn't.
Oh,
Yeah, same. But you know what? I've said it for a while. I think we'll be okay. I think law of averages says not every single promoted club goes immediately back down for season upon season. We might still be one of them, but I'm not going to go into the season without a level of confidence. And the transfer window has done nothing to make me feel less confident. So look, onwards and upwards, I think.
exactly.
So we'll do a podcast when I can be bothered. But up until then, please unlike, please unsubscribe, and please stop asking us to do podcasts, which you are doing more frequently, and I really appreciate that. Thanks for joining, Pete, Sophie, Dave, who's left, and Ian, of course.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Cheers.